from a different angle when it comes to this hip hop thing. When you hear music, how I hear it, how you hear it, how you hear it, and how you hear it, all of us will sonically point out something different. So my approach is math and science. Here is the fundamental formula of what is known as turntablism and rap. Without this formula, these two things that I just mentioned would be impossible, would not be here. When you deal with math, 1 and 1 will always be 2. If it's Thailand, if it's Australia, if it's Japan, if it's England, 4BF equals 6CCR equals full loop, the get down part, the break. Let me break this down. The average amount of music before we understand it is 4 bars. So, let's just take Good Times. I'm gonna kind of hum it. Good times, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when we recognize it. I watched DJs play in the early 70s. And the part that was most entertaining was the part where the drummer had a solo. During this period of time, there was no computers, no laptop, no technology, no Facebook, no Snapchat, no nothing, no studios. Just duplicate copies of 2 pieces of vinyl and a mixer and a microphone. Now what I learned is when the record is spinning clockwise and the 4 bars have passed, it is totally impossible to pick the tone arm up and put it back in the same place to repeat it. So the defining moment was this. The actual defining moment was when I put my fingertips on the vinyl. But when I did that, I had a problem. Because when you first buy the turntable, it has this nasty rubber pancake piece thing on it. So I got rid of that, and my mother was a seamstress. And I learned how material felt, like velvet and polyester and wool and cotton. And when I got to felt, I said, this feels very familiar, because when I was in grade school, you cut out the letters for the teacher, you're in kindergarten, I'm saying, but this feels really familiar, really feels good. So what I did is I ran home and I got 1 copy of my record, and I ran back to the material store, and I cut out 2 pieces of this felt. And I ran back home, and when my mother wasn't looking, I put this piece of felt on the ironing board. I turned the iron all the way up hot, and I sprayed spray starch on it. So I took this limp piece of felt, and I turned it in what I called it was a wafer. That's what I called it. I called it a wafer. Today it's called the slip mat. Why did I call it a wafer? During Easter, your mother dresses you up, and you go to the thing, And you go down the line, and the pastor, whatever your religion is, you get to the guy, and he hands you that white thing, and you put it in your mouth. It's a wafer. I says, wow, this feels, I called it a wafer. But then needles was the next problem. Needles come in two classifications. It's conical and elliptical. When I tried to drag the record back this time, I got the fluidity, but the needle didn't stay in the record. It wasn't until I picked the conical, which was shaped like a nail, so when it went inside the vinyl, it stayed inside the groove. Let's go back to the 4 bars forward. 4 bars forward. So what I did was, I took the vinyl, and I used a crayon, and I marked where the drum solo was in the record. And then I took a line that went to the beginning of the break, and I called it the intersector. And what I did was 4 bars of music. Here's the tone arm. How many times does the intersector mark past the tone arm before it goes into the whackness? 4 bars. Going forward, you have to spin the vinyl back 6 counterclockwise revolutions to re-arrive to the top of the break. Just took me 3 years to figure this formula out. And I remember my good friend of mine spent the night at my house, and I dragged him out of the bed, and I says, yo, come look at this. His name was Easy Mike. I figured out a way to taking the drum solo from a pop record, a jazz record, a funk record, a disco record, an R&B record, a blues record, a funk record, Caribbean record, or alternative. And these drum solos were like 10 seconds. So if I can use the word cut and paste, I was able to take duplicate copies of the record and cut and paste this break that was 10 seconds and make it seamlessly 10 minutes. This is the beginning, thank you, of what is called turntablism. And I say this is because the vinyl now serves 2 purposes. Not only is it the sound source, but it is now the controller. You now can control time. Once I figured that out, I didn't care if the record was a white record, a black record, a foreign record, an American record, or whatever record. If it had a drum solo, this is what I was percussively extending. Prior to this, DJs would use the tone arm to find their desired section of the record. When I decided to put my fingertips on the body of the record and use it as a controller, I was hated, disrespected, because at that time you do not treat vinyl like that. You treat vinyl like children in the 70s. You take it out the sleeve very carefully, and you use this velvet brush. I'm like, why are they doing all that? Like, why are they doing that? Me? I snatched it out of the cup and I put my fingertips all over it. I'm making a record dirty, but this was the only way it was possible for me to be able to control time. But while I'm controlling time, I'm also extending time. So now, if you use 4BF and you times that times 4, that makes it 16. So now it turns into a 16 bar. So guess what happens now? Somebody can talk on it. Mm-hmm. They don't have to talk in the bridge, they don't have to talk in the chorus, and the things that normally happen in the record. Now the talker, the MC, has a clean bed to tell this story.
Flash, real quick. Y'all understand what he's talking about?
Yeah.
All right. Anytime you run into any problems, let me know, because I can help you out over here with some of this music here.
I want to let you talk in a minute, man. So it was
You
called
good.
Hot 16 back then.
Good.
You know what I mean? So if a MC wanted to get on and talk, he had to talk on a clean, better music. But it was totally impossible to do this before I did this. Totally impossible. So I say this, it's because, and I talk about this now, it's because at that time when I did this, geeks weren't cool. So for me to go to Mike, or to go to all of them and say, yo, Mike, 4BF equals 6 CCR equals, man, I think I was like, what is he doing? So I kept this really quiet for 40 plus years. It wasn't until this white guy from Australia comes to me about 22 months ago and he says, I need your help putting together a television series. And I've heard this story over and over and over again. And people have said, yeah, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do this and that and that and that. And this gentleman says to me, I need your help with this. I meet with him, and in his home, he has this huge timeline of events and things that happened from 70 to 79. And I look him in the face and I say to him, why do you want to document this? He says, Flash, I'm not concerned when you became a star, you guys started making our records. I'm not concerned with that. I want to know about the homegrown, organic years. That is what I want to film. And I said, why? He says, because you guys done so much with so little. And the world needs to know this. So I went on this 17-month thing with him. I gave him all the places, locations, times, people, places. Then Hurt came in, gave his information, and then Bambaataa came in, and gave his information, and all of our understudies came in and gave this information. And he says, Flash, I want to use one of your terms as the name of the show. I want to call it The Get Down. And to date, I remember when we was first doing it, Netflix and Sony was coming in and checking, what the hell are they doing? We don't understand what's going on. 6 months in, they said, oh my goodness, this is gonna be huge. So they upped the stakes and he says, we're gonna put this in 190 countries in 30 different languages. So a lot of people, they call me a legend, but a lot of times that title, I fear it, because a lot of times legends die before they get to see what they've done. I just happen to be a geek that seen the playing field in the 70s, and I said, no, 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 no. That's not how I hear it. I hear it like this. The original house of hip hop goes like this, ladies and gentlemen. DJ, graffiti artist, breaker, there's something missing here. There's something missing here. So the question is, Flash, why is that missing? It's because